Good morning, Year 11. Pause the video and play when you're ready to go through the answers. Okay, if we've got a negative power, we need to have the reciprocal. So 1 over 16 to the power of a half, which is 1 over the square root of 16 to the power of 1, equal to 1 over 4. Now, dividing fractions, you keep the first one and then you multiply by the reciprocal. Keep, flip, change. You've then got 15 over 8, which is 1 and 7/8. Okay, you can leave it as a mixed number or as a improper fraction. Okay, when you've got a simplified question like this, you want to factorize as much as you can. So we've got x plus 5, x plus 2, and then in this one, you could have x plus 5, x plus 3, or I'm going to write it the other way around just to prove a point. So we've got x plus 3, x plus 5. If you have x plus 5 divided by x plus 5, that's just going to cancel to give you 1. So our final answer is going to be x plus 2 over x plus 3. Now in this question, we want to work out x. Now it's not a right angled triangle. We have a side and an opposite angle. And we've got to work out what x is. This one you should be realizing is the sine rule. So what I can do, I'm working out a length. So the lengths are going to go on the top of the fraction. So x over sine 80 is equal to 7 over sine 32. Multiply both sides by sine 80, and you've got 7 sine 80 over sine 32. And you just have to type that into your calculator. So 7 sine 80 divided by sine 32 is equal to 13.0 centimeters. And I've rounded it to 1 decimal place. Okay. Can you pause the video, copy the title down, and play when you're ready to go through the examples? Okay, just before we go through the examples, a reminder that you must be doing your Hegarty, okay? So lots of you are getting your Hegarty done, but some of you are forgetting to do it. So you've got homework set on a Monday, Wednesday, and a Friday. Your Thursday period 6 lesson is also 2 Hegarty maths tasks, so make sure that is done as promptly as possible. Right, first example. So on the left, we've got y equals x squared minus 6x plus 1. And it says, using completing the square, find the minimum point. So completing the square, hopefully you've realized or remembered that we halve the number in front of the x. So we're going to say y equals x minus 3 squared. Okay, so x squared minus 6x becomes x minus 3 squared. If we expanded that out, if I just do it quickly, just as a reminder, so if we've got x minus 3 multiplied by x minus 3, what you get is you get your x squared minus 6x. So we're just completing the square on this bit for now. So we've got x squared minus 6x, but we also get plus 9. Now we don't want this, so we're going to subtract the 9. And now these two things are identical. But we've also got plus 1 from the opening line. So then if I simplify it all down, I've got y equals x minus 3 squared minus 8. Now, I have completed the square, so I've already picked up lots of marks here. But the question says work out the minimum point. Now, the key here is some number squared. Now, the smallest value of anything squared is 0. And what value of x makes this bracket 0? Well, in your coordinates, the value of x must be 0. Sorry, I've done that completely wrong. The value of x must be 3. You want that bracket to be 0, right? So if you've got 3 minus 3 squared, that's going to give you 0. Now, when x is equal to 3, you should be able to see if you put x equals 3 into this, your y value is just going to be negative 8. And that is the minimum point. So what that means is if you've got your graph like this, the lowest value is when x is 3 and y is minus 8. So your quadratic looks something like this. The minimum point is at 3 minus 8. Okay, I'm just going to write this one out. And then what I'd like you to do is to attempt this question. Do as much of it as you can. and then play the video when you're ready to go through the answer. Okay, so this one, if you complete the square, you should get y equals x plus 2 squared. We want to take away the 4, and I still need to add the 7 from the first line. So then if I simplify that down, I've got y equals x plus 2 squared, and then I have got plus 3. The lowest value of anything squared is 0, and the x value, to make that bracket 0, the x value must equal negative 2. And when the x value is negative 2, the y value is going to be 3. So the minimum value is at minus 2, 3 here. So if we were to sketch it, it would look something like this. And the minimum value at the bottom, I've not drawn that fantastically well. If I can do that again, you want the lowest value to be at minus 2, 3. So try and be careful when you do have to sketch them. So we've got the lowest value there. Again, I've not drawn it fantastically, but you should get the idea. Okay, pause the video, play these questions, and then play when you're ready to go through the answers. Okay, can you write the subtitle, Sketching Graphs by Completing the Square? Okay, so if we were to sketch the graph, we've just got to find a bit more information. So we've got y equals x squared plus 8x minus 5. Now, if you complete the square, what you'll get is x plus 4 squared. That's going to give you, take away 16. You want to also subtract 5, so that's going to give you negative 21. So if you were to work out the minimum point, so we want the turning point, that's the same as the minimum point. Where does the graph turn? The turning point is going to be at minus 4, minus 21. But I also need to work out where does it cross the x-axis and where does it cross the y-axis. Now, where does it cross the y-axis? That's easy, because if you think about your graph, the y-axis is where all of the x values are 0. So if you substitute x is 0 into this, you get 4 squared, which is 16, subtract 21, which is minus 5. So the x value is 0, and when the x value is 0, the y value is equal to negative 5. You know that it crosses the y-axis at 0, minus 5. The lowest point is minus 4, minus 21. So minus 4, and then we've got all the way down here, we're going to have negative 21. So the lowest point is down here. And we just need to work out what are the x-intercepts. Okay, so it's y-intercept, x-intercepts. And that's because it's going to cross the x-axis at 2 different values. Now, in order to do that, we just have to solve the equation. So if it's crossing the x-axis, the y value must equal 0. Because if you think about it, all the values along the x-axis, the y value must be 0. So we can say 0 equals x plus 4 squared minus 21. If you add 21 to both sides, you've got 21 equals x plus 4 squared. If you square root both sides, this is where you get your two answers. It's plus or minus the square root of 21 equals x plus 4. And then you subtract the 4. So x is equal to minus 4 plus or minus the square root of 21. So this value here is going to be minus 4 plus root 21. And this value here is going to be minus 4 minus root 21. So you know that your graph goes through this point, and bear with me because my sketch is not perfect. Okay, this one should be across here a bit more, and you'll see why in a minute. So that's the minimum point here. We know that it goes through this value 0, minus 5, and it's going to keep going like so. Now it should be a bit more symmetrical, so it should look a bit steeper like that. Now I'm just worried that when I erase this, I'm going to do the whole thing again. So, no, that's fine. So minus 4 plus root 21 is going to be this value here. Okay, pause the video, see if you can give the question on the right a go, and then check your answers when you are done. Okay, so we've got y equals x squared plus 10x plus 3. Complete the square, you get y equals x plus 5 squared. That's going to give us 25, which we don't want. So I'm going to take off 25, add 3 to give me negative 22. So the minimum point is minus 5 minus 22. The y-intercept is probably the easiest one, so that's when x is 0. So 0 add 5 is 5, 5 squared is 25, subtract 22 is 3. The y-intercept is 0, 3. And to work out the x-intercepts, this time y is equal to 0, so we've got 0 equals x plus 5 squared minus 22. If you solve that equation, the only bit that you should get stuck on is when you square root both sides, it's plus or minus the square root of 22. That's where you get your two x-intercepts from. So then we've got minus 5 plus or minus root 22 is equal to x. And then the hard bit is just sketching the graph. So it crosses the y-axis at 0, 3. So I could write that here, but it could get quite messy. So 0, 3. The minimum point is at minus 5 minus 22 down here. And then we've got two values. So the square root of 22 is going to be a bit less than 5. So minus 5 plus a bit less is going to be about here. And minus 5 minus root 22 is going to be about here. So we could label those on. So that's minus 5 minus root 22. And this one here is minus 5 plus root. That is the x value, and then that is the y value. That is the x value. That is the y value. Then it looks a bit complicated. You can do it slightly larger in your book, but it's going to go down there. It's going to go up here. It's going to go through 0, 3, like so. Okay, and that is your perfect sketch. So it does look quite complicated, but do it in steps. Draw your graph nice and large. Okay, pause the video, give these questions a go. Here are the answers. Okay, now we've got a couple of GCSE questions to do. Pause the video, play when you're ready to go through the answers. Okay, so if you complete the square on this one, you've got y equals x minus 4 squared. That's going to give you 16, which you didn't want. So minus 16 add 21 is going to be plus 5. Now you've got x minus a. So you've already got the negative that's included. So a is just going to be 4. And the value of b is plus b plus 5. So b is going to be 5. Just be careful with the negatives. You've already got the negative in the question. So a must just be 4. So you've sketched it here. It says, what is the minimum point? Well, the minimum point to get this bracket to equal 0, x must be 4. And when x is 4, the y value must be 5. Could that coordinate be 4 across 5 up? Yes. Okay. Next one. Okay, this one's slightly harder. So if you complete the square on this, this one's got a fraction. So it's going to be y equals x minus 5 over 2 squared. That's going to give me 25 over 4, which I don't want. So I'm going to take away 25 over 4 and then add 10, which is the same as 40 over 4. I'm just making the denominators the same. So then if I simplify that, I've got y equals x minus 5 over 2 squared plus 15 over 4. My minimum point is going to be 5 over 2, 15 over 4, okay, which might be easier to plot as decimals. 2.5, and then this one is going to be 3 3/4, I believe, so 3.75. Y-intercept, so what happens when x is equal to 0? Well, that's going to give you 25 over 4, and 25 over 4 plus 15 over 4 is going to be 40 over 4, which is 10, so that's going to give you 0, 10. And the x-intercepts when the y value is equal to 0. So we've got minus 15 over 4 is equal to x minus 5 over 2 squared. Have I made a mistake here? Square root both sides. If you square root both sides, you get the square root plus or minus the square root of a negative number. Now, because it's a negative number, you can't actually solve this. So this one is not actually going to cross the x-axis at all. And you can see that when you sketch it, because the minimum point is 2.5, 3.75. And you know it crosses the y-axis at the point 0, 10. So actually this graph, I plot it like this graph doesn't actually cross the x-axis, and that's because you can't have a square root of a negative answer. It doesn't work. So it says hence or otherwise determine whether this has any real roots. That means, does this one cross the x-axis at all? Now you should remember that this means go 2 left, 3 down. Well, if our minimum point was 2.5, 3.75, if you go 2 left, that's going to give you 0.5. And if you go 3 down, you've got 0.75. Now, because these two values are still above the x-axis, 0.5, 0.75 is going to be about here, your graph is still not going to actually cross the x-axis. So does it have any real roots? No, as the minimum point is 0.5, 0.75. Okay. There you go with the. Okay, so we got turning point crosses the y-axis at 0, 10. You can see that there is no x intercept because it never actually crosses the x-axis. Okay, the exit tickets to finish. So what are the coordinates of the minimum point of that question, A, B, C, or D? Okay, so get the minimum, you want that bracket to equal 0, so x must be minus 2. When x is minus 2, you should get minus 3. So which one is minus 2, minus 3? D. Next one. Okay, this one is slightly more outside of the box. So this one, you should get the minimum point is going to be minus 5, minus 12. So then that's requiring you to have that knowledge. Line of symmetry, the line that goes through minus 5 here, and that's the line where all of the x coordinates are minus 5. So that one is going to be D again. Last one. What is the equation of this curve? Okay, so the minimum point is 5, 2. So working backwards, your equation for the value of x to be 5, it needs to be y equals x minus 5 squared. And when that value of x is 5, y is equal to 2. So we want the equation that says x minus 5 all squared plus 2, which is going to give you. Okay, I hope you managed to get that. Please do ask questions if you are stuck at all throughout the lesson, and I look forward to teaching you again on Monday.